She unexpectedly crashed a Mafia wedding. What the boss revealed changed everything forever. Maria stood at the edge of the dance floor, clutching her glass of cheap Merlot like it was a lifeline. The surroundings of extravagant silk and glittering chandeliers felt suffocating, and the laughter pierced through her like shards of glass. She'd never imagined herself here, at her childhood friend Angela's wedding, a grand spectacle draped in wealth and ambition, while she labored at the local hospital, mired in the grit of reality. It felt like an illusion, a deceptive facade of joy and celebration, too strident for her modest upbringing. She scanned the room, her heart a knot of unease, feeling more like an uninvited guest than a cherished friend. Conversations swirled around her, filled with a superficial enthusiasm that made her skin crawl. How could people seem so carefree? So disconnected from the struggles of everyday life? She felt like a ghost, floating through a beautiful world that didn't acknowledge her existence. "You shouldn't be so shy, Maria," chimed in a distant relative, forcing a smile that felt hollow. "You should mingle." With each suggestion, her anxiety spiked. She was a nurse, not a socialite, and this was her domain. As if summoned by her inner turmoil, a couple of guests whispered conspiratorially nearby, their voices low but urgent. "The Mafia has tightened their grip on healthcare around here. It's unreal." Her ears perked up. Here, in this party of privilege, wealthy patrons spoke casually of corruption, something she faced daily. It was a reality she battled against every shift: underfunded facilities and patients overlooked in the system. But then, a shadow fell over her. Maria turned, heart racing. It was him, the Mafia boss himself, his presence commanding and overpowering. His dark eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, time froze. "You've got quite the reputation for strength," he remarked, a smirk playing on his lips. She felt that chill racing down her spine, the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths swirling between them. Before she could process his proximity, he stepped closer, guiding her away from the crowd. "Your father was involved in something significant," he murmured, his voice low, conspiratorial. The air thickened with an unspeakable weight as he pulled back the veil on a life she thought she knew. A scandal her father had kept secret, one whose consequences still echoed through the lives of her patients, danced before her like a ghost. Betrayal crashed over her like tidal waves. This revelation turned the celebration into a tainted memory. Her mind spiraled. All those years of admiring her father's honor shattered like crystal underfoot. She was torn between two worlds, the legacy of her family and her duty as a caregiver. Even now, clinks of glasses and raucous laughter filled the air, but the joy felt fake against the backdrop of greed and manipulation. "This affects the community you love," he continued, an ominous undertone underlying his casual tone. Caught in this storm of choices, she hesitated. Would she challenge the very fabric of an established corruptive power that breathed down her neck? The idea sent ripples of fear through her, questioning not only her career but the very core of her family. What would you do, if it were you? She thought desperately. Would she open this Pandora's box, risking her job, her family's honor, and the safety she felt? Just then, the weight of the decision settled heavily on her chest. As her heart beat furiously, she knew she stood at the precipice of something monumental. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The laughter from the wedding felt like a distant mocking chorus. Could she truly stand silent while the town she loved suffered? Every nerve within her imploded with the stark choice ahead. The revelation cascaded in waves. This was not just a personal betrayal, it was an injustice infecting everyone she cared for. As the joy of the evening spun into an unbearable fray, Maria felt the pressure closing in like a vice. The outcome, if only she could foresee it. She was caught in a treacherous tightrope, balancing familial loyalty against a calling to expose the rot that had seeped into the heart of her community. How could she reconcile her father's legacy with the responsibility of her profession? Until this moment, Maria never fathomed the depths of her father's ties to a convoluted web of deception. The truth clung heavily in the air while fireworks erupted outside, but she felt no warmth, only a chilling uncertainty. The weight bore down, it was now or never. Would she pay the price to unmask the truth that demanded justice? The glimmering facade of the wedding turned into a battleground of morality, leaving her teetering on the edge of chaos. The atmosphere buzzed with a dissonance that mirrored Maria's internal turmoil. The harmonious melodies of the wedding dance seemed to mock the chaos brewing within her. She took a deep breath, steadying her racing heart amidst the whirlwind of laughter and clinking glasses. Every pulse echoed the electricity in the air, a reminder that the choice she faced was monumental. Could she confront a legacy of deception without losing herself? Your father's connections run deep, the Mafia boss's voice lingered in her mind, a dark siren call beneath the festive facade. The whispers of illicit dealings splintered her reality, and suddenly, her role as caretaker felt insufficient against a tide of corruption. Even surrounded by merriment, she felt her purpose unraveling, knot by knot. The thought of her patients, the very people who relied on the strained resources of the hospital, fueled a dawning resolve within her. Determination settled, and she was not merely going to stand by while darkness clouded her community. The boss had merely flicked a switch, illuminating shadows she had overlooked for far too long. As a nurse, was she not trained to confront illness? Why should this moral malady be any different? She cleared her throat, her eyes scanning the bustling hall where dignitaries danced, blinded by glitz but utterly oblivious to the devastation lurking beneath. Maria's gaze fell back on the boss, who was now engaged in a conversation with other guests. As she observed him, a plan began to unfurl in her mind, not one born of recklessness but rather rooted in careful strategy. Each interaction presented potential alliances, allies who might cater to her inquiry into her father's past. But the thought of engaging among those who thrived in a world that nurtured manipulation sent shivers through her. Who wouldn't be watching her every move? The moment she made contact, stepping away from her ghostly stance on the periphery, the vibrant colors of the wedding began to blend into her reality. Purpose surged as she approached a group nearby, craftily steering the dialogue toward the hospital's systemic issues. Has anyone else noticed how funding seems to diminish every year? She asked innocently, directing attention away from her personal predicament, attempting to gauge their responses. Laughter turned into nods of agreement, voices low now, filled with murmurs of concern over healthcare's plight. The Mafia's involvement became the undertone, and she didn't even need to hint at her knowledge. They started to talk. Each revelation felt like a brick removed from a wall that had grown too tall. Yet, trepidation simmered just beneath her cheerful facade, an awareness that she was testing boundaries, stepping into delicate territory. As conversations rolled out like a wave, the chaos of the wedding faded into the background. She was no longer the wallflower, she was a budding strategist, crafting her narrative among the smoke and mirrors. They expressed their frustrations, fears, and even a thirst for change, a collective discontent bubbling just below the surface. In these moments, Maria realized just how many people shared her concerns. Suddenly, the whispers of action became more than ghost stories but the seeds of potential change. But as she leaned deeper into their discussions, a momentary glance from the boss thwarted her momentum. His eyes narrowed, studying her, as if challenging her every word. Fear mingled with adrenaline, the stakes felt exponentially higher. Could she outmaneuver a figure so deeply entrenched in this web of deceit? Drawing a slow inhale, determination rose within her. She could not let fear dictate her actions, she had a duty to uphold the truth. But even as she nodded along with the growing sentiments around her, a stifled panic broached her consciousness. Could she be identified as a threat? What if he decided her prying would endanger her career, or worse? Just then, the music shifted to a slower tempo, couples gliding past in their blissful haze. Maria's heart thudded against the beat of the moment, a crescendo of sublime tension. At once, she understood, it wasn't just a battle against shadows, it was about uncovering the light in the darkness. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity was unfolding before her to gut the corruption lurking in plain sight. She squared her shoulders as clarity surged through her. This was just the beginning, she was going to reclaim her narrative. How far was she willing to go to uproot this deception? The tension rose as she assessed her next move, ready to encroach deeper into dangerous territories, searching for clarity and courage. With one last look at the boss, defiance ignited within her. Tomorrow holds new challenges, and she would confront them head-on, starting with uncovering the truth about her father's past and what it meant for her future. The turning point was here. Her journey had only just begun. What path would she ultimately choose, and what truths would she tear apart to rebuild anew? The following day arrived with a heavy sense of purpose pressing on Maria's shoulders. The morning sun filtered through her window, the soft glow illuminating her cluttered desk, a natural reminder of the organization she craved yet struggled to maintain. Coffee in hand, she scanned the pile of medical reports and administrative paperwork, intertwining them with loose notes about the whispers from last night. Every conversation ignited an ember of curiosity within her, a burning desire to uncover the web of deception surrounding her father. As she prepared for her shift at the hospital, Maria's mind whirled with the gravity of her situation. Each patient relied on her expertise, yet she felt the pull of shadows encroaching from the fringes of her reality. How could she save others when she needed saving herself? The juxtaposition of her nursing duties and the haunting revelations about her father's past weighed more heavily than ever. The chaos around her at the wedding had dimmed but not extinguished. The fear was now a companion that urged her forward even as it draped her with hesitation. As she drove through the familiar streets, the stark contrast of her surroundings jolted her. Families going about their daily routines, oblivious to the looming darkness shadowing their lives. She made a mental note: the hospital was not just her workplace, it was ground zero. Beneath the veneer of white coats and sterile equipment lay a minefield of societal issues that the Mafia boss exploited for power. A familiar tension seated within her. Reclaiming her narrative would require more than courage, it required strategy. Arriving at the hospital, the ambience dripped with routine. Medical professionals buzzed with purposeful energy, though Maria felt on the fringes of this everyday motion. Each interaction now felt significant, ripe for the picking, as if conversations previously only filled with pleasantries could turn into fruitful intelligence. Her first patient of the day, an elderly woman named Mrs. Johnson, clutched her arm as if she were both a beacon and brief anchor. "You look troubled, honey. What's eating at you?" the woman asked, her tone gentle, no doubt aware of Maria's distracted demeanor. Catching herself, Maria smiled warmly, buoyed by the thought that perhaps even patients might harbor insight. "Just a lot of work on my mind," she replied, maintaining the facade, but she saw the glint of concern in Mrs. Johnson's eyes. It served as a reminder that complexity weighed heavily on everyone. Her struggles were not unique. As she moved about her shift, snippets of dialogue replayed in her mind: the concerns regarding funding, the quiet acknowledgement of Mafia ties, crucial bits of intelligence now entangled with her sense of purpose. But the heaviness lingered. She reassessed her morning alongside the events of last night. What if she could connect the dots of distress she observed throughout her work with the concerns of her hospital community? Was there a way to mobilize the voices of patients, peers, even admin to confront this looming shadow? Her thoughts were interrupted when the hospital's chief administrator, Mr. Carlyle, approached her. "Maria, you're looking determined. Rattled by something, I presume?" There was a depth to his gaze that unnerved her, a palpable awareness that suggested he sensed her internal battle. "More than rattled," Maria replied, forcing a composed demeanor. "I think we need to talk about our funding situation, gather some insight from beyond the usual scope." Carly's brows quirked upward, an unspoken challenge glimmering in his expression as he stepped closer. "Now's not the time for naive intentions. You know these issues get murky fast, don't you?" His skepticism pricked her resolve but also fueled her determination. "But isn't clarity what we need? Who's going to challenge the murky waters if not us?" Something shifted in that moment. The notion that she was not alone in her struggle began to crystallize. As she began to voice her concerns, something clicked. Connections began forging in her mind. What if she combined a small-scale survey of staff and patients regarding their experiences? This could potentially expose the severity of the issue while safeguarding her efforts under the guise of improving care, but the shadow of the Mafia still loomed in the back of her mind, and the fragile line between her ambition and danger tightened. Each piece of the puzzle fell delicately into place, but she had to be careful. The revelation of her father's involvement could shift everything. Would she risk her career to uncover these truths, Or would her quest for knowledge expose her to dangers far more significant than she could imagine? Determined, she steadied herself for the challenges ahead, ready to chart a course deeper into the undercurrents of corruption that had seeped into her world. Her heart raced as she thought about the incoming confrontation, a nervous anticipation sparkling in her veins. What alliances could she form in this dark realm, and what dangers lurked within shadows she had yet to uncover? She entered the hospital corridor, the vibrant light tinged with trepidation. A ringing telephone pulled her from her thoughts, a call she felt might change everything. Would it be a lifeline, or a final thread unraveling the fabric of her carefully constructed world? Maria yanked her thoughts back to the present, her heart racing as she stared at the phone. The ringing intensified her trepidation. Was this the moment that would shatter her reality or reinforce her path? She snatched the receiver with hesitant fingers, steeling herself for whatever news awaited her. "Maria, it's Dr. Washington," came the familiar voice, smooth yet tinged with urgency. "I need you in the ER now. We have a situation." The gravity of his words settled over her like a thick fog. "On my way," she responded, a new rush of adrenaline propelling her forward. This could be the distraction she needed, an opportunity to reset her spiraling thoughts. The ER was a whirlwind of activity. As she navigated the chaos, her senses heightened. She could feel the collective tension of her coworkers merging with the frantic energy of patients arriving. It was a microcosm, the perfect staging ground for both healing and the looming threat she sensed everywhere. "Over here." Dr. Washington called, gesturing toward a semi-conscious man being wheeled in on a stretcher. Blood stained his shirt, and Maria's heart sank at the sight. She stepped closer, instinctively applying her clinical mindset to the scene, a skill honed through years of training and an emotional shield she had polished time and again. "This is Tony DeLuca, stabbed in the side." Eyes glazed, possible shock, Dr. Washington instructed, scanning the vitals. Maria felt her breath catch in her throat. DeLuca was tied to the very underworld she was trying to unravel, a link that could bring significant consequences. As they worked to stabilize him, snippets of his life swirled in her mind. The stories whispered in the hospital corridors about his family's mob connections, the trepidations of staff who worried about what might happen if they crossed paths with such individuals. Was this the tipping point she sought? "Maria, focus." Dr. Washington's voice cut through her swirling thoughts. "Existential battles come second. Let us save a life." With renewed resolve, Maria pushed aside her worries, immersing herself in the task at hand. The rhythmic beeping of machines created a pulse of urgency as they worked. It was during this chaotic ballet of care that she felt empowered. Each challenge blended with her growing determination. She was more than a nurse, she was a lifeline. Once stabilized, DeLuca was wheeled into surgery. As the adrenaline ebbed, confusion reared its head. Would he survive? And if he did, what would that mean for someone living in the shadow of his world? She couldn't help but question the implications of this encounter, curiosity mixed with fear. Later that evening, Maria found herself lingering in the break room, thoughts muddled as she sifted through the chaos of the day. The detachment she needed to maintain was eroding under the weight of her growing resolve to address the corruption gnawing at her. The faces of her patients fused with DeLuca's unconscious form, and she contemplated the intertwining of their fates. Just then, Maria's phone vibrated on the table, snapping her back to the present. The number was unknown, yet a shiver of recognition passed through her. Hesitation tightened her chest, but she answered. "Maria, I have information," an unfamiliar voice said urgently. "Meet me where the shadows linger tonight." Her pulse quickened, ripples of uncertainty and excitement cascading through her. This could be the moment she needed to unveil the secrets plaguing her life and hospital. But was she ready to plunge deeper into dangers she scarcely grasped? As she glanced out the break room window, the darkness outside seemed to echo her apprehensions. Maria gathered her courage, realizing this wasn't merely about her family anymore. It was about lives she's sworn to protect. The question loomed large: would she take a step into the abyss, or step back into the safety of ignorance? Determined to confront the shadows head-on, Maria slipped her phone into her pocket. The world outside faded as she pondered the path ahead, uncertain yet resolute, teetering on the precipice of a profound transformation that could alter not just her life but the lives of everyone around her. what secrets awaited her in the depths of the night, and what lines would she dare to cross to uncover them? The brisk night air enveloped Maria as she stepped outside, her skin prickling with anticipation and trepidation. The shadows stretched across the parking lot, creating an unwelcoming embrace around her. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back. Yet, a deeper layer of her ambition pulled her forward, compelling her to unearth what lay hidden in the depths of corruption. Finding the meeting spot wasn't as hard as she anticipated. The grungy alley was etched into her mind from the whispered tales of the hospital staff. It was a place notorious for dark dealings and unspoken agreements that ran deeper than blood. Maria's heart raced not just from fear but from a startling sense of purpose. She was equipped with more than just her medical skills. Her resilience had evolved into a weapon against the shadows that haunted her profession and her family. As she approached the dimming light at the end of the alley, she felt her resolve solidify. The voice on the phone had offered her a lifeline, a chance to connect the dots that had eluded her grasp for too long. This meeting could provide clarity or plunge her deeper into chaos. But Maria was no stranger to chaos. She thrived within it daily in the ER. Maria? The voice cut through the quiet darkness, low yet demanding attention. Turning sharply, she focused on the figure standing beneath a flickering streetlight. The man was nondescript, his features partially obscured by shadow, but there was an undeniable strength radiating from him. He stepped closer, revealing a distinctive ring adorned with intricate designs. Recognition flickered in her mind. It was a symbol of the very family she sought to understand. "Who are you?" Maria challenged, her voice steadied with implicit authority, matching the confidence she cultivated over years of advocacy for her patients. "Rico," he replied, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "I'm here to tell you that the life you live and the world you've learned to navigate aren't as isolated as you think. You're linked to more than you realize." Her heart thudded loudly in her chest. Rico's words wrapped around her, spilling secrets she had long feared. The connections between her family and this underworld ran deeper than blood. They entangled her in a web of responsibilities she hadn't yet understood. "Why should I trust you?" Maria's voice wavered, betraying a flicker of vulnerability. She had honed her skill at detachment, yet something about this encounter pricked at the edges of her rigid facade. "Because everything you've been searching for in the shadows of your life is interwoven with the fate of others," he replied, stepping into the light, a glint of earnestness in his eyes. "Your patients need you, but they also need to know you are safe. When danger lurks, it finds its way home." Maria felt a mix of indignation and realization wash over her. Her life had been engulfed by the desire to insulate herself from the very dangers looming in her peripheral vision. Yet here it was the confrontation she'd avoided for so long. The threshold of choice lay before her, to unearth layers of her identity intertwined with the Mafia legacy or to retreat behind the veil of her nursing career, blissfully ignorant of how far-reaching her family's secrets truly were. She inhaled sharply, the weight of her decision solidifying within her. "I want the truth, every piece of it." Rico nodded, seemingly confirming her resolve. "Then you must understand two things. This journey will change you irreparably, and trust is a currency more valuable than money here. Are you willing to risk everything to protect those lives you cherish?" In that moment, Maria felt the gravity of her decision pressing upon her. The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty, but also with the gold of potential revelations. She gripped her phone tightly, her lifeline, now a symbol of connection rather than isolation. "What do I need to do?" she asked, urgency threading her tone, resilience now blazing in her spirit. The night held its breath as Rico unfolded the map of her new reality, blurring the lines between nurse and protector, employee and avenger. As Maria stood there, teetering at the cusp of transformation, she realized she was ready to confront the shadows not just around her, but within herself. But as Rico's words began to unravel a tale of betrayal and alliances, a chilling realization struck her that secrets hadn't yet touched the surface. What would it mean to uncover them, and at what personal cost? The image of Tony DeLuca loomed large in her mind, and Maria understood that her choices were about to intertwine not just with her own fate but the fates of many she had yet to meet. Could she commit to a reality where moral lines blurred and everything she valued was at stake? Her thoughts raced, now racing toward an unknown future filled with danger, revelations, and an unsettling sense of belonging in a world she never chose to inhabit. The air hung thick with tension as Rico's words resonated in Maria's mind. What had she signed up for, diving headfirst into the murky waters of her family's past? Her analytical mind, honed by countless hours in the ER, began to dissect the implications of the path she was embarking upon. I need to know more, she said, her voice steadying. It wasn't just about risk anymore, it was about knowledge. Armed with the truth, she believed she could navigate this dangerous terrain. Rico studied her for a moment, gauging her resolve. Then let us start at the beginning. We'll need to gather information, meet people who can enlighten you about the connections your family has and the weight they carry in the city. It won't be easy, trust me. Maria felt an unsettling mixture of excitement and dread. Her role as a nurse often required her to protect her patients and advocate for their well-being. Now it seemed her sphere of influence was expanding in ways she never anticipated. This time, she wouldn't just be saving lives, she'd be challenging the forces that threatened them. Who do I need to meet? Rico wasted no time. First, we'll visit Lena. She's an insider with a lot of information, and she knows the stakes. Lena. The name hung in the air, punctuating Maria's growing curiosity. Who was she? And why did she possess knowledge that could change the landscape for Maria's patients? Feeling the urgency to act, Maria steeled herself for their first meeting. As they traversed the city's nocturnal pulse, Maria observed the quiet tension in Rico's demeanor, a mix of anticipation and wariness. She realized they were not hunting for answers in a void, they were stepping into a web woven from years of silence and complicit suffering. You seem nervous, she remarked, more to draw him out than out of concern. Rico met her gaze, and for a brief moment, Maria saw the flicker of vulnerability behind his steely exterior. This is the family business, Maria. Trust is earned, not given. I'll protect you, but I need you to trust in the process. We are venturing into territory where even daylight fears to tread. As they approached a nondescript building, the shadows swallowed them whole. A knot formed in Maria's stomach. Her instincts screamed that she was striding into a nest of danger. But she ground her fear into resolve. She was a nurse, accustomed to dealing with chaos and unexpected outcomes. They entered the dimly lit room where Lena awaited them. Her presence filled the space with an allure that belied the openness of her attire. Maria took in every detail, her medical training automatically observing minute behaviors, how Lena's fingers fidgeted, her eyes flicking to shadows beyond. Rico, Lena acknowledged, and then her gaze shifted to Maria. And you must be the brave one. Brave enough to want the truth, Maria responded, defying the underlying tension. Courage surged within her as the protective instinct for her patients flared. There was no turning back. What you want comes with a cost, Lena warned, her voice low and steady. Family ties in this realm are as binding as any contract. Forcefully severing them can lead to severe repercussions. Maria felt a chill in her bones. The gravity of her choices was sinking in. It wasn't merely about her family's history or her career. It was about the lives intertwined with the consequences of her quest for truth. What do I need to know? Maria pushed, ready to plunge into the depths of what this journey would demand. Lena leaned forward, a smirk creeping across her face. To make an impact, you must understand who you're up against. Not just Tony and his ilk, but the silent enablers within your own circle. The name Tony DeLuca reverberated like an echo in a locked chamber, filling Maria's head with fleeting images of faces she had seen in the hospital, connections she had brushed past without recognizing their danger. The disorientation pushed her to confront her growing fear head-on. This was more than a journey for truth, it was a mandate to redefine her role. How far was she prepared to go? With the lives of her patients clinging to her decisions, each revelation steeped in peril, Maria knew she was not merely stepping into corrupt shadows, she was becoming a beacon of resistance. Determination crystallized within her. I will go where you lead. I won't stay silent any longer. As Lena began to reveal the threads of influence woven throughout her life and profession, Maria sensed the ground shift beneath her feet. It was no longer just about uncovering her family's past, it was about sculpting her future along with it. Would she have the bravery to face the shadows within her family and her own soul? The answers would lead her closer to a reckoning she both feared and craved. Maria's heart raced as she armed herself with knowledge, knowing the table was set for a confrontation she was only beginning to glimpse. All she could do was follow the path, fraught with danger, awaiting the moment when she would truly confront the forces at play. But as new identities began to unveil themselves, a deeper, darker reality loomed on the horizon, one that no amount of training could prepare her for. Would she emerge from the depths, or would the shadows consume her whole? A chill settled in the dim room as Lena detailed the intricate connections between Maria's family and the city's underbelly. The air grew heavier with each revelation. Maria's pulse quickened, a mix of adrenaline and dread coursing through her veins. She could feel the weight of her family's legacy pressing down on her shoulders, and a creeping realization dawned. This was bigger than just her past, this was about the lives she sought to protect. Your family, Lena continued, leaning closer, her voice growing conspiratorial, held power and influence that rivaled some of the most infamous players. But it came at a cost. You need to understand how this world operates if you want to make any progress. Maria's analytical mind struggled to keep pace. Every piece of information unraveled a thread she didn't know existed, tying her closer to a lineage steeped in dubious deals. The implications were staggering. And if I refuse to engage, what does that mean for my career? My patience? She asked, her heart pounding in her chest. These lives depended on her integrity. Could she balance what she was learning with her responsibilities in the hospital? Lena smirked. Let us not pretend there's an easy way out. Your current allies may be your greatest adversaries. The question now is, what are you willing to do to protect them? To protect yourself? Maria's resolve hardened. A flicker of defiance ignited within her. I won't let their choices dictate mine. I'll expose them if necessary. Her voice rang out with unexpected conviction, surprising even herself. She had always been the protector, but now she found a firmer ground within her beliefs. Rico's eyebrows raised in surprise, but approval flickered in his eyes. That's the spirit. But knowledge is a weapon, wield it wisely. We aren't playing a game, we are confronting the deep-rooted fears and consequences of legacy. As their discussion unfolded, Maria recognized the fine line she was walking. Each divulged secret chipped away at her view of morality. Was she still the advocate she believed herself to be if she sought to expose her family's past? The thought was both intoxicating and terrifying. There was no going back. She was embroiled in a world that revered silence and manipulation. Lena handed Maria a worn file, a dossier filled with clippings, photographs, and names. This will guide you. Look closely at each entry. These connections are the heart of your hesitation and strength. With trembling fingers, Maria opened the file, scanning through its contents. She recognized faces, some from patient rosters and others that kept lurking at the edges of her memory. Each name felt like a harbinger of change, stirring a tempest within her. As she absorbed the information, questions rapidly formed, her internal monologue buzzing with urgency. Who could she trust? What routes to uncover the truth were still open to her? Know this, Lena's voice cut through her thoughts. Understanding their motivations will empower you. Your position as a nurse isn't just a career, it's a shield that can both protect and expose. Choose your alliances carefully. Maria nodded, absorbing the weight of Lena's words. If she wanted to shield her patients, she needed to harness the full spectrum of this new power. But doing so meant grappling with her family's legacy. The moral dilemmas weighed heavily on her mind. She was forging a path that could lead to a deafening conflict inside herself and the world around her. Let us not waste any more time, Rico interjected, shifting the atmosphere with urgency. We need to act on this information. The sooner you begin to understand their dynamics, the better equipped you'll be. Before Maria could respond, a thought struck her like lightning. Was this pursuit of truth leading her deeper into a web of consequence, or would she emerge transformed and stronger? As they prepared to leave, something in the air shifted, thickening with anticipation. Maria could feel her past lurking ominously on the periphery, ready to shape her future in unknown ways. That night, as Maria lay in bed, the shadows stretched long, echoing her fears. She was on the brink of a confrontation that would eventually demand more than just her commitment. It would ask for her identity. The moment of truth loomed nearer. Would she stand firm in her values or dissolve into the shadows of her own family's legacy? As her mind raced through names and potential strategies, she resolved to confront Tony and unravel the sinister connections. But she couldn't shake the feeling that the closer she got to the truth, the more perilous the stakes would become. Would she gamble with the lives of those she cared for, or could she navigate the darkness without losing herself? Tomorrow would bring answers. The question was, could she handle what those answers might demand? Morning light seeped through the edges of Maria's curtains, illuminating the stark reality of what lay ahead. Today was her first step toward confronting Tony, but the anticipation twisted her stomach with tension. The dossier, heavy with secrets and implications, felt like a lead weight in her bag. She had spent restless hours wondering about each name and photograph, their connection to her past shifting from abstract danger to a palpable threat. As she arrived at the hospital, the familiar sounds of bustling staff and patients greeted her. Yet, there was a dissonance. Maria felt like a stranger in her own world. She was there to heal, yet now she was stepping onto a battlefield. Each person she passed held the potential for complicity in her family's sordid history. Would her colleagues still trust her once they knew her connection to the people behind the scenes? With her mind racing, Maria's thoughts briefly flickered to her patients. They depended on her entirely. The responsibility rooted deeper in her chest like a thorn. It gnawed at her, questioning whether her newfound pursuit of unmasking truths could jeopardize the very lives that relied on her. Maria. A voice called, pulling her from her reverie. It was Dr. Patel, her mentor and confidant. His brow furrowed with concern as he approached. "Are you all right? You seem distracted." Maria hesitated, debating how much she should disclose. "I'm just thinking about some family matters," she managed, carefully avoiding the loaded details. "Family can be difficult," he said, his tone softening. "If you ever need to talk." His voice trailed off, leaving a door of openness slightly ajar. Gratitude bubbled within her. She appreciated his willingness to listen. But vulnerability stood at odds with her intentions. She couldn't walk down that path just yet. As the day unfolded, Maria immersed herself in her responsibilities, treating each patient with unwavering focus. Yet, she fumbled through her tasks, the dossier etched in her mind. Every beep of the machines and every cry echoed questions about allegiance and choice. During lunch, Maria found herself seated alone at a corner table. The hum of chatter faded as she pulled out the dossier. Each entry became a character study, revealing more than mere names. She lingered on a photograph of Tony, the confidence in his stance juxtaposed against the chaos surrounding him. He embodied the conflict within her. Could her wish to expose him coexist with her throbbing need to protect the vulnerable? Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena. "Meet me tonight at the Pines, 7 p.m. This information can't wait." The urgency in her tone struck a chord. She couldn't delay any longer. If she was to confront Tony, she needed to act now before her fear cemented into inaction. The evening sky hung heavy with clouds, mirroring Maria's anticipation as she entered the diner. The place was half empty, a dimly lit refuge that seemed worlds away from the bustle of her day. Lena was already there, sipping coffee and drumming her fingers on the table. "Time to move," Lena said without preamble, her eyes intense. "You need to know everything before you confront him. We have a lead on a meeting tonight, Tony and some associates." Maria's pulse quickened, excitement mingling with dread. This was her chance to gather information, to untangle the threads of her family's dark legacy. As they settled into a booth, Lena laid out their strategy. "Listen carefully. We'll need to blend in and observe. Knowledge isn't just a tool, it's your best defense." Gripping her coffee, Maria's determination surged. This was not just about protecting her patients, this was about confronting a legacy that threatened to map out her future. But as Lena continued explaining the plan, Maria felt shadows creeping in on her. Would she really be ready for what lay behind the next door they opened? Behind the cloak of her family's power lay not just buried secrets but dangerous truths. The stakes were higher than she could have imagined. What had she gotten herself into? As they prepared to leave, Maria caught her own reflection in the window, a blend of steely determination and underlying apprehension. Tonight would be pivotal. but would it reshape her identity? The weight of those choices lingered as the door swung open. With her heart racing, she stepped into the uncertain night ahead, the specter of her family's dark legacy looming ever larger. What awaited her at this clandestine meeting? The unraveling of truths or a confrontation she couldn't have anticipated? The streetlights flickered as Maria and Lena approached the venue. An unassuming warehouse on the outskirts of town belied the chaos of the world within. The muffled sounds of laughter and music seeped through the aging walls, revealing a far more glamorous affair than the drab exterior suggested. Maria's heart raced. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a celebration steeped in the sort of life she had desperately tried to escape. "Stay close," Lena whispered, a firm grip on her arm guiding her forward. They had scouted the area earlier, noting the security presence. The heaviness of the dossier in Maria's bag now felt like an anchor pulling her into the depths of a tumultuous sea. She knew that the choices she made tonight could alter her future forever. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Tuxedos and elegant dresses swirled in a dance of opulence, and amidst the laughter, Maria caught glimpses of familiar faces, people who had played roles in her life, unaware of the depths of their entanglements. Her stomach tightened, every smile reminded her of the betrayal that clung to her family history. "Look," Lena said, signaling to a corner of the room where Tony stood, impeccably dressed, surrounded by a small group of men. The decorum of the gathering was juxtaposed with the tension that rippled through Maria. Each word spoken in that circle carried weight. Each laugh hidden a potential threat. "How do we approach this?" Maria's voice was barely above a whisper. She felt small in the midst of grandeur, her resolve shaking. "Observation first, remember? We need information. Watch their interactions, who they trust, how they communicate. Understanding the dynamics can be your advantage," Lena replied, her tone unwavering. Maria took a deep breath, rare confidence trying to push past her fear. As the evening progressed, Maria settled into the role of an observer, adrenaline mingling with every sip of champagne. The warmth of the drink offered a temporary solace as she mentally catalogued everything. She noticed subtle gestures, a hand on a shoulder, a shared look, laughter that transcended the surface. The intricate dynamics painted a picture more complicated than she had anticipated. Then, fate intervened. From the corner of her eye, Maria spotted an older man making his way toward Tony, interacting with an ease that indicated familiarity and danger. He held a small envelope, a transaction of sorts. Maria's instincts kicked in, pulling her closer, unbeknownst to her that Lena had followed suit, navigating expertly through tables. As they approached, a bridge between the past and present began forging. Maria's heart thundered. In that moment, she realized she was not just an observer, she was entwined in a web she needed to now navigate with clarity and purpose. This couldn't be mere reconnaissance, this was a direct confrontation teetering on the edge of truth. Lena leaned close, her breath hot in Maria's ear. "We can't miss this opportunity. We need to uncover what they're planning." Maria nodded, determination igniting. Her resolve was no longer just about her family but about the countless lives intertwined with her actions. As she shifted to gain a clearer view, the elegant facade of the event began to morph into something sinister. Behind the laughter, a deeper story loomed, veiled in deception. Then, suddenly the music subsided, and an expectant hush fell over the crowd. Maria's breath quickened, something significant was taking shape. She stole a glance at Tony, who had turned his attention toward the stage, and for the first time, something flickered in his eyes that she hadn't anticipated. It was a calculated confidence that betrayed layers of hidden motives. "It's now or never," Maria said, her voice firm. She stepped past the crowd, heart racing, ready to immerse herself in a tidal wave of turmoil, poised to confront the storm brewing within her family's past. But would she find clarity, or would she drown in the depths of the revelations that awaited her? As she made her move toward the stage, the unexpected revelation of her family's ties to this world loomed just ahead, shifting everything she believed to be true. The moment bore down heavy. Whatever lay beyond this threshold would either reveal the truth or shatter her dreams of retribution and salvation. And just as that thought solidified, the room erupted into chaos, a sudden noise breaking through the gathered tension that sent shockwaves of dread spiraling within her. The chaos erupted in a cacophony of shouts and screams. Maria's heart raced as people began to scatter, leaving behind their laughter and pretense. The tension, which had been a constant companion throughout her journey, now felt like a live wire, pulsating in the air. Her instincts kicked in, she needed to act, and fast. "Move!" Lena shouted, pulling her into the recesses of an adjoining hallway, maneuvering swiftly. Her mind raced to connect the dots of this eruption, sensing that the events unfolding held deeper implications for her and her quest for the truth. It wasn't just an accident, this chaos was a symptom of the disease that infected her community. What was that? Maria managed to gasp, adrenaline forcing her to remain focused. Lena's expression was one of steely determination. The moment was overwhelming, but in it, Maria felt a flicker of empowerment. "That, my friend, might be a diversion," Lena muttered, eyes scanning the urgency of the situation. "We might be able to slip out unnoticed, but we can't let this chance go to waste. Remember why we're here." Memories of her patients flooded her mind, their hopes and vulnerabilities intertwined with her own moral dilemma. For too long, healthcare had been an underhanded business, manipulated by players like Tony. But it was now or never. The fates of many were at stake, and she was ready to leap. They stealthily navigated to the back of the warehouse, but a fierce resolve had formed within Maria. She needed to confront Tony more than ever. "No. We can't leave without answers," she announced abruptly. Lena shot her an incredulous look but understood the passion behind her words. "Okay, but let's gather evidence while we're at it," Lena agreed, a fire igniting in her eyes. They slipped through the shadows toward an office tucked away in the corner. It screamed secrecy, a perfect place to store the poison of power. As they entered, the desk was littered with papers and folders. Maria felt a rush as she began rifling through the documents. Each piece was crucial to uncovering the web of deceit that had entangled her life. "Maria, hurry," Lena urged, her voice a whisper. "We don't have much time." Just then, Maria's gaze caught on a file labeled with her father's name. Panic and determination coursed through her veins. Without hesitation, she snatched it up. The implications were staggering. She felt as though she were holding her family's legacy in her hands, an albatross that had shaped her, but which she could now dissect. "Let us go," Maria insisted, clenching the file tightly. As they stepped back into the fray, the sounds of chaos began to dissipate. The crowd was now focused elsewhere, giving them the window they needed. As they reached the exit, Maria turned to Lena. "I'm not backing down, not anymore," she declared, brimming with newfound confidence. "My patients deserve the truth, and I won't let a corrupt system swallow them whole." "Do you realize what that means?" Lena asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Yes. I'm ready to confront Tony and take control of this narrative," Maria affirmed. "My role as a nurse goes beyond care, it's about fighting for justice." Days passed, each one steeped in meticulous planning. She pored over the contents of the file with renewed vigor, blending her nursing knowledge with a strategy that would finally unravel the corruption intertwined with her legacy. She was no longer a passive participant. With every new development, the woman who had arrived at that wedding as a ghost transformed into a warrior. The day of reckoning arrived when Maria stood in front of Tony. The air hummed with tension as she confronted him at a secretive gathering of his associates. Her voice rang clear and unwavering, shaking the foundations of his empire. "You've built this on the suffering of many, and it's time to put an end to it." With every word that flew from her lips, Maria felt the faintest hints of transformation. From a silenced nurse afraid to speak, she'd morphed into an unyielding advocate for justice, her voice a beacon for those who had been robbed of theirs. The moment she finished speaking, applause erupted, not from Tony's underlings, but from the very patrons of her hospital who had rallied around her, emboldened by her courage. Recognition dawned on her at that moment. It wasn't just her growth. She had transformed into the voice her community needed, her own metamorphosis intertwined with the awakening of those around her. Every challenge she had faced pulled her closer to her mission. She became the linchpin in a greater battle against the corruption that had plagued her community. As she stepped away from that confrontation, the weight of her father's legacy felt lighter. She had challenged the shadows and emerged into the light, not just in her career, but in her soul. Maria now stood, solidly confident and recognized as a force of change. The connections once felt as shackles had become wings of empowerment. She had reclaimed control over her narrative, she had conquered the very fears that once hung over her like a cloud. Taking one last look at the scene, she felt no regret. The path ahead was hers to forge, illuminated by the undeniable truth she carried within her. The resolve was palpable, and it was here, amidst the echoes of change, she found fulfillment in her true calling, not merely as a nurse, but as a champion of integrity and hope. For those who have been with her on this journey, you need to subscribe now, because this is the moment to show your support for extraordinary stories of personal transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so more people can connect with tales of overcoming adversity. Comment your reactions and theories about Maria's incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. The time for change is now.